This morning we're working on a 2015 Silverado 2500 HD with the 6.6 Duramax. Customer states they have a check engine light on and the Reductant Quality Poor light was on intermittently this weekend on a long road test. So we're going to get into this thing and try and figure out what's causing those lights on there. Do a code scan, see what codes are set in here. P249D, closed loop reductant injection control at limit, low or flow too low. That's the code we've been seeing with the reductant quality poor light on in the dash. What happens is anytime the computer sees the it uses NOx 1 and NOx 2 to see if that unit, that reductant bed, is doing its job. But anything, from the reductant bed to the NOx sensors to the injector to injector pump, any of those systems go down, it's going to set that code because it just sees that the NOx sensors aren't reading what they're supposed to read. So it's kind of a long drawn out diagnosis for this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, we'll check some parameters. There's a couple things I can do on a road test fairly quickly to see if it's under engine, to see if our problem is NOx sensor related or possibly injector pump related. So I'm going to pull up some PIDs up here that I like to use. Let's see here. I want to see what the reductant pressure is. That'll tell me my pump's working. I want to know if when the injector comes on, and I want to see what the NOx sensors are doing. So I need NOx sensor 1. The NOx sensor, actually I want to deselect all those. NOx sensor 1, NOx sensor 2, and where was that other one? Reductant pressure and reductant injector command. Okay, so we're gonna look at those, and I want to, let me start this thing up. So if we look at, we want to graph these. Okay, so we got NOx sensor 1 on the bottom left and NOx sensor 2 on the bottom right. We have the top right is the pump pressure. So basically that'll tell us if we have a pump malfunction or possibly a leak in the line, and then the reductant injector command will tell us when the injector is coming on. So NOx 1 is a NOx sensor reading from the right at the turbo, and NOx sensor 2 is the NOx sensor reading after the reductant bed. What we'll see here, if everything's working right, is NOx 1 will be relatively high, maybe 100, 150, 200. And NOx 2 will drop down into the 10-20 range during normal operation when the reductant injector comes on. What I suspect we'll find is NOx 1 is high and NOx 2 doesn't come down low enough. If that's the case, then we'll do some tests on this road test, and we'll see if we can't figure out what is not happening on this. So let's go for a road test. Now it'll take a little bit for those things to come on and start to read correctly, because they got to warm up. All right, though. So there you see, NOx 1 is starting to function. Above that is the injector is already injecting, and the pump has got what, 76 psi or so. So everything's working. NOx 2 hasn't come online yet, but the injector is already injecting, so it's already starting to take care of the NOx, even though the computer's not reading NOx 2 yet. We'll go a little bit further. Once that thing warms up, it'll come on. And what you're going to see when it comes on is it's going to go super, super high, because there's a lot of NOx, or there's a lot of reductant fluid in there into the bed already, because that injector's been operating. So what'll happen is, because that injector's been on, it's soaked that reductant bed with reductant fluid, with DEF fluid, and the NOx sensors can't tell the difference between actual NOx and DEF fluid. It looks the same to them. So what'll happen is, as soon as that thing kicks on, it's going to read all that excessive DEF fluid in the reductant bed, but it'll clear up in a minute or two, and then it'll read accurately. So we'll just take it through the paces here, and until it gets all fully warmed up, then we'll be able to run a couple tests. All right, so there you see it jump up. See, look at that, 3,200 parts per million. That's just reading all that excessive DEF that was dumped into the reductant bed until it warmed up. But now that took too long to warm up. That took quite a while to warm up. Normally it doesn't take that long to warm up. But as you can see, it's dropped way down. It's down to, what is that, a little over under 100, right around 100 parts per million. So now it's functioning. Now what you need to watch, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to step on the gas real hard, bump the speed way up, and then I'm going to let off real fast. You're going to see NOx 1 drop to nearly zero, and NOx 2 should drop to zero shortly thereafter. Driving in the middle of traffic though, so I need to let this clear out a bit. Okay, I'm going to step on the gas hard here. Let off. NOx 1 goes down to 0, or below 10 at least. NOx 2 stayed up above, what, 36. It didn't go low enough. That should go down to almost 0. So what you're basically doing with that test, that snap throttle test, you're loading up, you're getting it nice and high, and then you're cutting all the fuel. Cutting all the fuel reduces all of the NOx in the system, in the combustion chamber. So what that does is it tests the full range of the ability of that sensor to function. If it can't see 0 or it can't see low, then it can't read the low readings when it's supposed to read low. So let me pull over. I want to change the resolution of that graph so it's a little easier to see. Okay, I changed the resolution. They're in a little bit different spot now, but so the NOx 1 is here, NOx 2 is here. Here's the injector command, and here's the pump pressure. You can see we got good pressure. That tests the pump and it tests the lines. We don't have a leak, and we got a good pump pressure. The injector is being commanded on. we don't know if it is if it's actually spraying, but there's a test we can do in just a minute when we get back to the shop that we can test and make sure that's happening. So what we want to see, I'm going to get on back on the freeway here, and I'm going to be able to gun it up this on-ramp, and you're going to see NOx go high on NOx 1. Actually, they'll both go a little bit high, and then I'm going to let off the accelerator. You'll see NOx 1 drop to close to 0, less than 10 usually, and NOx 2 should follow that after 4 or 5 seconds later. It should drop down to nearly 0 as well. If it doesn't, then our NOx 2 is not reading correctly. So let's get up here and accelerate here as soon as the traffic's clear, and we'll see what happens there. Accelerate again and let off. NOx 1 drops way down. NOx 2 doesn't even come close. So that points towards a bad NOx 2. No matter what, that NOx 2 should have, and look, we have no injector command during that period either. So there's not excessive depth in there causing that reading to be high. So we got a bad NOx 2 on there. That's a pretty definite test. What we can do is when we'll get back to the shop, we'll put it up, and we're going to pull that injector out, and we can do a def fluid quantity test on it and make sure that it's flowing correctly. Should put out about, I think, 50 milliliters per test sequence. I think it pumps for about a minute, and then you measure in a beaker how much fluid it put out. So we'll get back to the shop, we'll put it up on the rack, we'll pull that injector out, and we'll do a quantity test. So that scan data was pretty evident that the NOx 2 sensor is not reading correctly. That should be able to drop to 0 about 4 or 5 seconds after NOx 1 drops. And if that doesn't drop to 0, if it stays high, then the computer thinks that there's more NOx in the system than there actually is. And it's pretty common for those NOx 2s to fail, and that's how they fail. They stay high, they bias high. So there's one more test I want to do before we condemn that thing. It's kind of an expensive sensor, so I don't like to do it unless we know. We're going to do a fuel injector quantity test. So what we'll do is we'll put it up on the rack. We'll pull the injector out. I put a beaker underneath the injector, and then on the scan tool, it's a scan tool test, we'll run the quantity test and the reductant, I think it's called Reductant Fluid Quality Test. It's just basically it just pulses that sensor for a minute. I think it's a minute. And it should produce like 50 milliliters. So put a little beaker underneath there, it'll collect it, and we'll make sure that it's not an injector problem. It still could be the reductant bed causing the problem, but you won't know unless you have a working NOx 2. So we'll do that reductant test, and then we're going to condemn the NOx 2. Once we do the NOx 2, replace it, I'll take you back out on a road test, and I'll show you how that thing drops down to 0 like it's supposed to. So let's get this thing up in the air and pull that injector out. So right up there is the injector. Not horrible to get to, it's not fun either, but so there's 2 nuts that hold it on. We're basically just going to pull it out of the exhaust stream there and let it hang, hang right down in here, and then it'll spray once we do that test. So let me get that thing out of here, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. Okay, so the injector is here. Let's get the light here a little better. There you go. So here's the injector out of it, and you can see it's just got a connector just like a fuel injector and a fuel line on there. That's the reductant line right there, and it's going to come out. It's going to spray out of this orifice right here, and it should produce about 50 milliliters in the test time. So we'll go back upstairs, or we'll go back up and grab the scanner, turn the key on, and then we'll come back down here and put a beaker under there and let it run its test. We're going to go into the reductant injector quantity test. So we're going to hit that test. It says once the injector begins to cycle, the test should take approximately 2 minutes to run. Okay, so it's a 2-minute run, 2-minute test. After elapsed time, ECM will end the test. Follow the exact instructions found in the service information. So it's going to start this test. We're going to say enable. It's going to build pressure, and then it's going to spray reductant fluid into this beaker. And it should be about 50 milliliters in the 2-minute test. I can already tell it's going to be fine. It's spraying nice. It's got a nice pattern. You can see it filling up the beaker quite nicely. So what this test does is it tests your pump. It tests that you have reductant fluid in there. It tests the line, and it tests the injector, and it tests the signal to the injector. So it's truly a complete test of that reductant injector system. That pretty much eliminates anything to do with the pump, line, injector, any of that. We've already proven that our knock sensor isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing, so as soon as this test is over, we're going to put us all back together, and we're going to sell the guy a knock sensor number 2. I will put that in, show you how I put that in, and then we'll take it back out on a road test again and ensure that it goes to 0 like it should. Should be getting close to being done now. Oh, there it's done. And we're about 45 milliliters, but I lost some because I couldn't get the beaker all the way up in there. So 50 milliliters, it's damn close. There's one other test we can do while we have this all out. We have our sample of the DEF that we're using. We'll use a DEF tester to actually test the quality of the DEF. So I'll show you how I do that. All right, so this is our DEF refractometer. This is an OTC. What you do is you take this, make sure it's clean from the last time you used it. Take your, take your syringe, Get a little def in there, and then just kind of drop it onto the refractometer, covering that lens. Drop your cover on it, and if you look up through the light, it will show you what percentage you're at, and we are about we're about 33%. So I don't think I can make this thing work with you. So you see that, I don't know how well that comes out on the screen, but you can see that we're at about 33%. So that's good. Def is good. The pump works, the injector works, the line works. We've already proven we have a bad NOx sensor number 2. We're going to put that NOx sensor in, and we will take it back out and make sure that it goes to 0. All right, so we sold that NOx sensor. We've got the part here now. We're gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna show you the process of replacing that thing. It's a little different than, like, it looks like an oxygen sensor, but it's different. It's got its own little computer on it, so it's pretty involved little piece of equipment. So let me show you where it's at and how we're gonna go about getting it out of there. So turn you around here. That there is the module for it. So that's the harness off the vehicle harness. This is the module. This is the harness to the sensor. It's got connections here for hold it to the other harness right here. And then over here, if you come up over here, you can see that's the sensor right there. So it looks like an oxygen sensor, except for it's more. And then that device right next to it is the temp sensor, one of the, I don't know, 5 or 6 temp sensors. So I think I'm gonna get this drive line out of the way so that I can get a wrench on there and not worry about rounded off heads. But so let me put the camera down and we'll get to work. Oh, it came loose. Woohoo! That's some good living right there. I wasn't sure that one was coming out. Okay, so let's move you to the other side and I'll show you how we get the rest of it done. Okay, so that's it. So here's the new one, the new module, and the new shiny sensor. That hopefully goes in a lot easier than it came out. All right, send this across the other side over here. And we can attach all our little clips. So I see on there. Okay. Right, now put the drive light back on. All right, we're back in the truck. Knock sensors in. What you have to do, whenever you replace the knock sensors, you have to do the knock sensor reset. So if you go into tests and then knock sensor number 2 reset, I think that all that does is just reset all the adaptives. So it all basically puts it all back to zeros. Oh, can't have it running, sorry. Key on, engine off. Knock sensor to reset. And then reset. And then reset completed successfully. Okay, so knock sensor is reset. Let's go back. We want to go to data and reductant system. So this time I'm only going to put in NOx 1 and NOx 2 because we really don't need to see if the pump is working or anything because we've already proven that it is. So we're just going to pull up our NOx concentration 1 and NOx concentration 2, and we can graph those. So I'm curious to see if NOx 2 comes on sooner than it did before. If you notice now, NOx 2 is at -1. It was at 99 when it was warming up. Okay, there's NOx 1 is awake now. Alright, there's number 2 woke up. That's a little bit sooner than the other one, but that's apparently just the time it takes to warm up. See, it went high again just like the other one did. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pull over here. I'm going to reset those parameters so that we can see it a little closer. Alright, so we got it reset. Here's NOx 2 here. It's already lower just sitting here than it was before. So 20, and NOx 1 is at 136. So already we have our 90% reduction in NOx. So just sitting here. So let's go do the wide open throttle test again. So you're looking at this one. They'll both go way up. As soon as I let off the throttle, this one will drop immediately to near zero, and then this one will follow a couple seconds later to near zero. So so you want to watch this thing to drop down. Before we weren't getting below 30, so let's see how much better this one is. All right, so we just got back from our road test. Right now we've got 170-ish on NOx 1. NOx 2 is sitting at 2. Before that was at 40, doing the exact same thing. So that was our problem. That fixed it. That means that everything else in the system is working right now. So no reason why the that poor quality reductant indicator will come back on. So we're going to call that one a fix. It was those poor quality reductant indicators can be tough to fix. Lots of testing you got to do on them. I did a video here a little while ago on how the system works. So if this video didn't answer all your questions, go back about 2 or 3 weeks of videos, and I put something on a whiteboard just to kind of describe how the system works. But these things can be tricky. You got to check the whole system before you diagnose anything. So you can have more than one problem on this kind of problem too. We may still have a bad SCR, a bad selective catalyst reduction bed, but it seems to be working great now. I've got the scanner right there. It's sitting at 4 parts per million on sensor 2. So that means that the SCR bed is doing its job. So we're going to call this one a fix, give it back to the customer, and he'll report back if there's any more indication of a problem. Thanks for watching.